Okay, so we're going to continue in our studies here, in our learning of Masechet Sanhedrin, in the Talmud Bavli. We already started the ninth parak. Wow. So we're in the ninth parak, and we're on Daf Ein Hey Amud Bet. We are in the middle of the page, Ein Hey Amud Bet. If you're following along in the English, we are in 75B-2. Okay, 75B-2. On the left column and the bottom paragraph over there. Okay, so a couple of stuff. Let's get reminded from last week so we continue this week's sugya. What is going on? Okay, so we started this parak. It's called Elon Israfin. These are the ones who get burnt. We saw there were 10 cases of people who can get burnt. That their punishment, execution punishment is burning. A is one case of a Bat Kohen who is married and commits adultery. She's the daughter of a priest. So she gets burned, but the person she sinned with does not get burned. That's a special law. We saw that pasuk already in the past. That's one of the cases of burning. The other 9 cases of burning are all similar, where the person who is committing the sin, both the female and the male, would both get burning. What are these 9 cases? So we saw the chart last week. Is if a guy has relations, improper relations with his daughter or his granddaughter, whether his granddaughter from his son or his granddaughter from his daughter, or if it's his wife's daughter. It's not really his daughter, but it's his wife's daughter or his wife's granddaughter, whether the granddaughter from the daughter or a granddaughter from a son. Those are already 6 cases. And the other 3 cases where they can get burnt is if he has relations with his wife's mother, his mother-in-law, or his grandmother-in-law, his wife's mother-in-law, or his wife's father, his father-in-law's mother. So his grandmother-in-law. And that's for a grand total of 9 cases, plus the Bat Kohen. That's your 10 cases of when people can get the punishment of execution, of burning. Okay, so Sreifa, those are the 10 cases. Now, we had all the way in the beginning when they started this parak. So if you want to look back in English, it's on 75A3. We had 3 psukim. The first pasuk, we talked about a man's granddaughter from his son or his daughter. He cannot be with her, right? And that was an issur from the Torah. Okay, did not talk about the grand own daughter. We didn't have a pasuk for that, but we're going to talk about that later on today. The second pasuk, if you take a look at note 8 on page 75A3, it talks about a man marrying a woman and should not uncover the nakedness of his wife's daughter or his wife's granddaughter. It's sha'ara hena zimahi, right? Those are the words we have to know. Sha'ara hena, hena and hena. So in the previous pasuk about his own children that he cannot be with, his grandchildren, it says hena hena. So we compare it, his children to her children. Just like her children, he's not allowed to be with, and they get srefa. So to his children, if he's with, he will also get srefa. And then the final pasuk was the one that actually talks about srefa, when it says that's where it says the punishment of ish yisrafu. So you have the azhara, you have the warning in the previous 2 psukim that talk about his own children or his wife's children, and then the pasuk about his mother-in-law or we're going to understand it as his grandmother-in-law, because it says et hen. Remember, we saw that last week. Lo tichya and zima b'tekechem. Right, get rid of the zima and kill them. Okay, so what we did was we had last week we saw a double gzer shava. We said it says burning and it says the word zima. In the previous pasuk about the wife's children that he's not allowed to be with, it says zima, zima, zima. Same way you would get burned for being with your wife's mother, you would get burned if you're with your wife's children, because it says zima, zima. And then we said how to compare it to his own children, because it says henna in the pasuk about his wife's children, and it says henna in his pasuk about his own children. So henna, we compared it and burning to all those cases. And we said just like his relatives, her relatives, he gets burning, so too his relatives are also the punishment of burning. And that's how we learn the 9 cases. Okay, so with that background and that review, now we can begin our Gemara for today. And our Gemara picks up by saying as follows. Our Gemara says, okay, you're telling me that we compare his relatives to her relatives, right? We say just like by her relatives, he would get burning. So if he's with his own relatives, he also gets burning, right? Hand in hand, zima, zima, fine. So the Gemara says, I ma hi em ima asura. Okay. If he is with his grandmother-in-law, is asur, and he gets burning. So af hu im em imo asura. And if you're saying you compare her relatives to his relatives, right, in the Gezerah Shabbat, then it should also make his grandmother an Isser from the Torah. And the problem with this is the Gemara in Mesecha Yevamot tells us a grandmother, his own grandmother, is not an Isser min the Torah. It's Isser de Rabbanan. It's Shneot le'arayot, the second degree arayot. It's an Isser de Rabbanan. So if you, but the question is why? Why is it Isur D'Rabbanan? If you're saying compare her relatives to his relatives, and if her relative, right, his wife's relative, he's not allowed to be with his grandmother-in-law, and if he's with his wife's grandmother, he gets burnt. So why don't we say the same thing with his being with his own grandmother? It's also Isur Min Torah, but the Gemara Yevamot says it's not. That's the question. Okay. Why are we not comparing it? Grandmother-in-law to his own grandmother. Okay. So now starts. Amar Abaye. Abaye answers. Abaye, a simple answer. Amar Abaye. Amar Karam Imachahi. By the way, what's the punishment if a man is with his own mother? Punishment is sekila. Okay, it's stoning. Okay, so it says in the pasuk, Amar Karam Imachahi. What's this pasuk? Take a look at the Torah or Hashalim. This in the left margin of the Hebrew side, the Torah Hashalim, the fourth pasuk it brings down. Just don't uncover the nakedness of your mother. So Abaye says, the Torah makes it an isser to be with your mother. But the Torah did not make it asur to be with one's own grandmother. Now it's isser derabanan, but it's not isser min Torah. Question that the Rishonim deal with is like the Meiri deals with: why is it? Why is it that Torah made it, according to the way we're learning, the Torah made it an isser deoraita with the punishment of serefa if a person is with his grandmother-in-law, but with his own grandmother, Torah didn't even talk about it. Right? The Rabbanan made it asur. Why didn't the Torah talk about it? So the Meiri and the Radbaz, they want to explain that there's a difference between one's own grandmother and one's grandmother-in-law. First of all, why the mother is sikila? Why would a man want to be with his mother and it's the worst punishment ever? So first of all, they say that that any man's first the first woman in his life is his mother. And as such, intimate feelings develop in the boy with his mother if they're very too close. And, this is a big issue. That's why the Torah gives a punishment, because the temptation exists for the man. But for some reason, a grandmother, his own grandmother, the temptation is not really there. And they explain it to be because the grandmother is going to be much, much older than him. Right? Let's say the grandmother got married at 20, and she had a kid when she was 20, so they had another kid when they were 20. So by the time he's 20, his grandmother is at least 60. Okay, there's no real, if not more than 60, and there's no real taiva. There's no real desire for his grandmother. She's much older than him. The Meiri says though, when a person marries his wife, right? He says the man could be, let's say, 50. Okay, and he marries a 20-year-old girl, right? Let's say he's 60. Okay, he's 60. He marries a 20-year-old girl. The 20-year-old girl's mother is 40, and his mother's mother is 60. So him and her grandmother are actually within the same age range. So it's possible that there's more temptation for his wife's grandmother rather than his own grandmother. Listen, there are other ways to explain it, but that's the way the Meiri explains it. Nonetheless, That is Abaya's explanation because the pasuk says imechahi, and talks just about the mother, doesn't talk about the grandmother, and therefore the Torah excludes, even though you would think that Gezerah Shavah should compare his relative, her relatives to his relatives, but pasuk says imechahi. Rava says, I don't need this pasuk imechahi because the Gezerah Shavah will not work. Okay, this Gezerah Shavah will not work. Now, just take a look at a moment on the next page, 75B3, note 25, the one in the brackets, the second paragraph in note 25. Although Gezerah Shavah is generally immune from refutations based on relative stringencies and leniencies, meaning Gezerah Shavah usually goes right away. That's only true. It's when it's mufna mishnei tzadadim. It's that when it's open on both ends. I mean, you don't need any of those words in the Gezerah Shavah. But if you need those words in the Gezerah Shavah, then it has to be equal in order for it to go across. Meaning, Gezerah Shavah is you learn something here and you learn something here, and you compare the two. The only time you can compare it, it's if they're both open. Those words are open. The pasuk is open. But if you're using the words in the pasuk for something else, then in order to compare them, they have to be equal on both sides. Okay, so in our case, Tosafot says the words are being used for other things, which we saw already in the Gemara. Therefore, if you want to compare the two cases, his relatives and her relatives, they have to be equal on both sides. Now, Rava says, and that's why the Gezerah Shavah will not work. Now, before we move on, we have to now, we'll say the next few words, and then we're going to explain it. Ben lemar da amar dun mina umina, uben lemar da amar dun mina ve'oki ba'atra. It won't work. The Gezerah Shavah won't be equal on both sides. Not according to the one who says you learn it from it and you learn from it, and not the one who says you learn from it, but you learn from here. What am I talking about? Lamashal. I explained it on Shabbat as follows. To me, is the easiest way to understand it. Anyone who uses computers, and you have a Word document or another document, and you want to what's called copy and paste, right? So you go to one and you copy, and you want to paste somewhere else. So in the newer Word documents, it asks you when you want to paste, do you want to keep source formatting or do you want to merge formatting to this page? Okay? This is exactly what it means over here. Dun mina umina. When we say Gezerah Shavah, do we compare it to the other pasuk and then we take it from that pasuk and say, hey, it says it over there. Let's bring it here and keep the halacha from there. Keep the source formatting. Whatever it says there, plus the halacha, bring it over here. Or the other way, do you learn Gezerah Shavah and say, Dumina, learn the Isur, learn what's Asur from that pasuk, but don't bring the halacha from that pasuk, v'oki ba'atra. Rather, learn the halacha from this pasuk, meaning it's copy, paste, merge formatting. Change it to this page, okay? So we can use this words, copy and paste, keep source formatting, or copy and paste and merge formatting. Right? So there's two ways to learn Gezerah Shavah. The first way, Dumina Mina, I believe is the Rabbi Meir. Second way is the Chachamim. So now, Rava says, no matter which way you learn Gezerah Shavah, both ways, it won't be equal on both sides, and therefore Gezerah Shavah will not work, and therefore you cannot say to be with the grandmother is an Isur D'Oraita. All right, now that we got the logistics and how things work, now we have to go through it and see how it should happen. So, Lo Atya, you would not be able to learn that a grandmother is an Isur D'Oraita. Why? Lamanda Amar Dumina Umina, according to the one that says you learn from there and you learn from there, meaning you copy and paste and keep source formatting. Mahi im ima asura. Okay, you want to say compare his relatives to her relatives. So her relative is asur, meaning her grandmother is asur to him. So hunami emimu asura. So to his grandmother should be asur to him. Umina, and you learn the halacha from her grandmother. Mahi b'srefa, just like her grandmother. If he's with her grandmother, he gets srefa. Hunami b'srefa. So too, if you're keeping source formatting, so then if he's with his own grandmother, he also will have to be srefa. Now, remember, we had a machloket. What was the worst punishment? Sekila or srefa? Chachamim said sekila is the worst, then srefa. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said it's srefa, burning, and then sekila is second. So, Lamanda Amar srefa hamura. According to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who says Srefa is worse. You can say as follows. You can cancel this Gezerah Shavah. Why? Malehi Shikeni Mabi Srefa. How can you compare it to her mother? Shekeni Mabi Srefa. If he's with his wife's mother, he gets Srefa. Tomar Behushi Mobiskila. You're going to say by a case where if he's with his own mother, he gets skila. You can't compare the cases. Why? Because the punishments are not equal. For example, if he's with her mother, his mother-in-law, he gets seifa. If he's with his own mother, he gets skila. Right? So the cases already, don't look at the grandmother case yet. Look at the mother case. It doesn't equal. But and furthermore, skila, one second. Give it, if he's with his mother, which is a worser sin, right? Closer relative, worser sin, you say give him skila. And if he's his grandmother, you say give him the punishment that he would be with the grandmother-in-law, which means seifa. And that means, according to Shimon Bar Yochai, you went up a level from sekila to seifa. You're saying the grandmother is worse, that you go up to seifa? That doesn't make sense. The mother should be the worst punishment, and grandmother should be the lesser punishment. And furthermore, by her relatives, when he's with his wife's relatives, there's no difference if he's with his mother-in-law or his grandmother-in-law. Both times he gets seifah. So too over here, you shouldn't differentiate between the punishment of him being with his mother and his grandmother, right? And it is a difference. You're saying one skila, one seifah. It has to be equal on both sides for the gezerah shavah to work. So therefore, according to this Manda Amar, it says seifah is worse. It doesn't work. And furthermore, Manda Amar sekila hamura. And even according to the one who says skila is worse, and therefore the mother gets skila, and being with the grandmother, his own grandmother, he gets seifa. That would make sense in that regard. But still, still, it's not equal on both sides. Because if it's with his mother-in-law or his grandmother-in-law, it's burning. But if he's with his mother, it's sekila. And if he's with his grandmother, according to the way we're learning right now of Gezerah Shavah, Dun Mina Umina, his grandmother would get burning, and it's not an equal punishment. Therefore, the Gezerah Shavah doesn't work. Right? And this is according to the opinion of copy and paste, keep source formatting. Now, we're going to explain Grava according to the other way of learning Gezerah Shavah, why the Gezerah Shavah would not work. According to the opinion that says, learn the Isur from the Gezerah Shavah, but don't learn the Halakha from there. Learn the Halakha from here. Merge formatting. All right, so what do you do? Mahi emima asura. Now, so let's learn. The same way being with his grandmother-in-law is asur, so avunami emimu asura. So to be with his grandmother should be asur from the Torah. But don't learn the lacha from the grandmother-in-law, which is burning. Rather, learn it from his relatives. By her relatives is burning. But here by the mother, it is stoning. You find by the mother. Okay, so what comes out according to this? It should be sekila for the mother and the grandmother-in-law. For the mother and the grandmother, his mother and his grandmother, he should get sekila because you learned the halakha from his relative side, and you just learned that it's also from the grandmother-in-law. You learned the isur. Okay. And that, both of them are equal, right? You would think. Let's see what the Gemara says. Now, first, according to the one who says Seifa is the worse punishment, you can ask a question. What's the question? How can you make this not work? By over there, when he's with his mother-in-law, he gets Seifa. Would you say the same din is when a person gets Sekila? Meaning, according to the one that says Seifa is worse, right? What are we saying? That by the mother-in-law and the grandmother-in-law, you get Seifa, the worst punishment. Okay, give them to both. By the mother, it's a lesser punishment, it's Skila. So would you say the lesser punishment is given to the grandmother as well? Why would I necessarily say that? Maybe not. Maybe since it's not Seifa anymore, maybe it doesn't apply to both. Maybe the only time the Torah says give sreifah to both is by the mother, by the in-laws, mother-in-law, grandmother-in-law. But over here, just as skila, maybe it doesn't want to go to the next level. Maybe a grandmother is a lesser punishment, and therefore it's not even any execution. Furthermore, Hukihi. It's not comparable. Why? Mahi lo chalakta ba ben bita le'em ima. Aful techalok ben bita le'em imo. Gezerah Shava doesn't equal out. It's not equal on both sides. Why? What that says. Right? When he's with his wife's mother, or if his wife's grandmother, or if he's with his wife's daughter, all the time the punishment is burning. Srefa. But on the other side, it's not equal. Why? Because by his mother, he gets skila, and by his daughter, he gets strefa, and it's not the same punishment. And therefore, both sides of the equation are not equal, and therefore, you cannot compare one to the other. The Gezerah Shava won't work. According to what it says, skila is greater, not srifa. Still, this second question that says the two sides of the equation are not equal, therefore, Rava showed no matter how you learn Gezerah Shava, whether you learn copy paste, keep source formatting, copy paste, merge formatting, both ways you get a Shava won't work because they're not equal on both sides, so you cannot compare the two, and therefore there's no way to learn that a grandmother is Isur from the Torah, and therefore it's an Isur Derabanan, as the Gemara Yevamot taught. Okay, so that's the first case. Now the Gemara again wants to do this comparison of his relatives to her relatives. And it says as follows: Ima hu kalato asura. The Torah tells us that if a man is with his daughter-in-law, okay, a man is with his daughter-in-law, his son's wife, the Isser is punishable by skila, okay, is punishable by skila, by stoning. So now, if you want to compare his relatives to her relatives, so he kalata asura, then it should be making her daughter-in-law should also be asur deoraita. Just like the Torah says you're not allowed to be with a person's own daughter-in-law, his son's wife, so too he shouldn't be able to be with his stepson's wife from the Torah. It should be an isur. And yet, the law is, as the article says over here, that a man may marry his stepson's former wife. Gemara Yevamot. So it doesn't say an isur of skila. If they're not married anymore, he'll be allowed him out to marry her. It's not considered an erva in that sense. So why is it? Why don't we say compare her relatives to his relatives to her relatives? Amar Abaya says, I'll tell you why. Amar Karab. It says, Eshet bincha he. She is your son's wife. Take a look at Torah Rishon for the full pasuk. Don't uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law. She's the wife of your son. Well, don't uncover her nakedness. So you see, it says your son's wife. The Torah says the oraita is your son's wife, but not because of your wife's son's wife. That's not there. Your son's wife, yes, not your wife's son's wife. Therefore, that's not an isur of the oraita. Rava says, I don't need the pasuk. The Gezerah Shava is not equal on both sides. Therefore, they cannot be comparable. Whether you say Gezerah Shava is you learn it from there and you learn the halacha from there. Isur from there and the halacha from there. Or whether you say learn the Isur from there but learn the halacha from here, lo atya, the Gezerah Shava won't work. Why not? According to the one that says keep source formatting, learn from there and learn from there. By his daughter-in-law that's asur, so we learned the isur. You want to say make a Shava, what? Learn from there the isur. The isur is to be with your daughter-in-law. Isur to be with your wife's daughter-in-law. Umina, learn the halacha from there. Ma'u biskila. Just like over there, if a man is with his own son's wife, he gets skila. So, and it's copy, paste, keep source formatting. So, api, nami be skila. So too, it should be with skila over here with his wife's daughter-in-law. According to the opinion, like we learn halacha l'maaseh, that skila is the worst punishment. You can ask a question. When it comes to the case of his mother, he would get skila. Would you say, no, if he's with his mother, he gets skila. If he's with his daughter-in-law, he gets skila. Okay, skila. But will we say the same thing for her relatives? Because if he's with her mother, he gets srefa. Would you say that he would now get skila, the worse punishment, if he's with her daughter-in-law? What's worse? What's worse? If a man is with his wife's mother, or if his man is with his wife's daughter-in-law? It's probably worse being with his wife's mother. That's a much closer relation than his wife's son's wife. It's a further relation. So why would you say skila there and srefa there? It doesn't make sense. Would you say if the mother-in-law he gets srefa, for the daughter-in-law he would get skila? The odd if he's with his wife's daughter, he gets burning, and with his wife's daughter-in-law he's going to get skila, which is the worse punishment. Second problem with the Gzera Shava, that is his wife's daughter he gets srefa, and his wife's daughter-in-law he gets skila, is not a good question. No, you can't say that one. Why? Because the same halacha applies to him. If he's with his own daughter, not his wife's daughter, his daughter, actual daughter. He would get srefa, but his kala, his daughter-in-law, his kilin, he would get skila. So you can't ask on that one why the daughter is srefa and the daughter-in-law is skila. Because it's on both sides again. It would end up being both sides again. Ela, the second question. But the question is, by his relatives, there's no difference between the mother or the daughter-in-law, his own mother or his daughter-in-law. There should be no difference on this side. And you're saying that for the mother-in-law, it is srefa, and for the daughter-in-law, it's skila. It shouldn't. Just like by his relatives, the mother and daughter-in-law is both skila. It should be both equal on this side. And it's not. And according to the one who says srefa is the worst, still this question of it's not equal on both sides is by his relatives, it's mother and daughter-in-law is stoning, and this side it's burning and stoning. Mother-in-law burning and the daughter-in-law stoning. Not equal on both sides because the Hashem doesn't work. And according to the opinion that says copy, paste, and keep and merge formatting. So learn from there the Isur, but learn the Lachap from over here. Mahu kalata asura, just like by his own daughter-in-law is Asur, afi kalata asura. So to her daughter-in-law is Asur to him. But learn the halacha from over here. Hatam who to be skila by his daughter-in-law itself, it's skila. Pasuk says, but by his wife's relatives always srefa. So what we're saying is you should get punished with srefa for his daughter-in-law on this side. So you find like being with his wife's mother. Now, according to the opinion, like we learned, Allah said that skila is the worst punishment. We can ask such a question. Ma'lehu. She can't even skila by his mother. He gets skila. Tomar bihi she'ima b'srefa. Meaning, the Torah says ima srefa. His own mother is stoning. So kala also stoning. Okay, the worst punishment, worse sins. But by the other side, it's not skila, it's srefa. Do I say because the mother gets srefa, mother-in-law, he would get srefa, the daughter-in-law also gets srefa? I don't know if that works. Stoning, as Torah says. But srefa, and then the other case also srefa, I don't know if that works. Skila, yes. So I don't know. The odd. Ma'u chalak the bo, v'mitol chalato. In his relative's case, there's a difference between his daughter and his kala. If the man is with his daughter, he gets srefa. If the man is with his kala, he gets skila. So it's two separate punishments, depending if it's a daughter or a daughter-in-law. So on his in-law side, it should also be a difference whether it's his daughter or his daughter-in-law. But according to this way of learning that copy, paste, and keep and merge formatting, you would have to give the kala burning. And so now you have burning and burning for kala and the daughter. But on the other side is burning and stoning. So it's not the same, because here's a difference on our side, and the other side we're trying to learn is no difference now. According to the opinion that says Seifa is the worse punishment, still, this kasha of it not being equal on both sides, if one's burning, one's stoning, and the other one is just burning and burning, doesn't allow for the Gizirah Shava to go through. And therefore, there is no Issa D'Oraita being with one's wife's daughter-in-law. And in fact, if he's no longer married to his stepson, he will allowed to marry her. It's not considered an erva to him. Okay, now comes the next question. We gave one of the answers already, but the Gemara wants to see. Gemara wants to look at this question. Bito ma'anusoto minayim. If a man raped a woman that wasn't his wife and ended up having a child, and he has a daughter, so it's just his daughter. It's not his wife's daughter. Now remember, if we take a look back on 75A3, the pasuk says he's not allowed to be with his granddaughter from his son or granddaughter from his daughter. The pasuk never said cannot be with his own daughter. So the Gemara's question is, the bito, his daughter from a rape victim, how do we know? His own daughter, not a daughter from his wife. How do we know he's isur and it is punishable by burning? How do we know this? Amar Abaye, Kal v'chomer. Amar Abaye, Al bat bito anush. If we're going to punish him for his granddaughter, I'll be told, the pasuk says you give him burning for his granddaughter, then of course you're going to give him burning also for his daughter. Gemara says, can you really do it? Do you punish from kal v'chomers? So the Gemara says, it's not just a real kal v'chomer. It's really just an explanation of the pasuk. Of course, of the granddaughters, and of course the daughters too. It's not a kal v'chomer. It's just that's the explanation of the pasuk. Rav Amar, Amar Ali Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi. This is the one we talked about earlier. Atya hena hena, atya zima zima. Pasuk says zima zima hena hena, and it compares his relatives to her relatives, and her relatives, it says her daughter, so the comparison is his daughter too. So it's hena hena zima zima. It's all Gzera Shava. That Gzera Shava works. Tani Abu Had Avin. The father Avin taught another brayta. Since it doesn't say about his daughter from a rape victim, therefore the pasuk said by the bat ish kohen kitachel is not. It says bat ish kohen, and ish means man, and it means possibly the father. Kitachel is not et aviha, and if she has znut with her father, well, that's not the way we learn the pasuk, and we say it means that if she has adultery, she embarrassed her father and she gets burnt, and the person she's with doesn't. Yet, possible to learn the pasuk this way. Kitachot is not et avia, that she had to have znut with her father. This is the pasuk to say. This is the pasuk that teaches us that the punishment for being with his daughter is from this pasuk of ish kohen kitachel is not et avia. Gemara says, one second. You're saying this is the pasuk. Ima bat kohen he b'sefa ve'im bo'ala b'sefa. If she is a married and she's a daughter of a kohen and she commits adultery, she gets burnt, and her person that she's with does not get burned. He gets regular strangulation. So perhaps if a man is with his daughter, because you're learning it from this pasuk according to Rav Avin, then she gets srefa and he doesn't. No. You know when she gets burning and not he, and he gets strangulation, that's it. She embarrasses her father. One who embarrasses her father. But comes out of here a case excluded from this is a case where the father profanes her, makes her mechalelet, makes her zonah. In that case, both of them get burning. Rava says, one second, what else do you want me to punish him with? Over there, when the bat kohen is committing adultery we give her the punishment about Kohen, and we give him the punishment of a regular Jew, and we give him strangulation. What should you do here? Let's say he's with a single girl. His daughter is single. She's not married. So it's not Ishit Ish. It's just a regular single girl. So what are you going to say? Punish him like if he was with a single girl? A single girl, you don't get punished if you're with. You don't get the executed the death penalty. What we say, don't kill him because he's with his daughter and she's a Puniyah. No, therefore it must be that they both get Srefad. Okay. How do we know the warning? Okay, so you want to say bat ish kohen kitachel. It says ba ish yisrafu, burn them, so you have the punishment of burning. What about the warning? Or you can never punish if you don't have a warning. You have to have a warning too. So where's the warning? According to they're saying it's the same sukkim about the other relatives. All right, zima zima and talks there about tzrifat and talks there about the warning. So therefore you have the warning. The Tanya Avua, the Rabbi Avin, but Rabbi Avua, the Tanya Avua, the father of Rabbi Avin, who said it is from this pasuk about Ish Kohen. Amar Rabbi Eliab, Amar Rabbi Ilaab, Amar Kra, Al Techel Bincha Laznota. Don't make your daughter into a harlot. Al Techel Bincha Laznota. Don't make her a harlot. That's the warning. Gemara says, Maskar Yaakov, Achud Achab Bar Yaakov, Yaakov, the brother of Achar Bar Yaakov, objected to this source. He says, "Hi, don't make your daughter a harlot." Is this what it's coming for? We learn for something else. Don't profane your daughter. You would have thought maybe that means if you have a Bat Kohen, you shouldn't marry her to Levi or to Yisrael. No, it says Liznota, to make her into a harlot. It's giving her over, a daughter over, to a man to have his way with her, not for the sake of marriage. That's what the pasuk is coming to teach. So if it's coming to teach that, it's not coming to give you the warning that if a man is with his own daughter, he'll get burned. You don't have the warning. If it's just coming to teach one teaching, it's to say al techel, don't profane. My al techalel, double lamed, shma mina tarte. You can learn two things from here. My avdalin. Now, Abai and Rava, they don't need the warning from here. So al techalel, one means don't give over your daughter for someone not for the sake of marriage. What do I do with the other lamed? Amar mani ze hamasi et bita. This means a person who gives his daughter over to an older man is not a good thing. Do not give a young woman over to an older man. Don't give your daughter to be a zonah. This is the one who gives his young daughter to an older man. This is one who has a bogeret at home, a girl who's ready. We'll explain in a minute. Thank you, Solomon. This is someone who has his older daughter at home ready to get married. She's mature, and he doesn't allow her to get married. And Rabbi Kiva is going to explain, why he doesn't let her to get married? He wants her services at home. She's korkun. I don't know. I think Bukhari means that she's shustri. She's able to do stuff at home. She's good domestic help. And he's worried that if he marries off his daughter, no one's going to help him at home. He's not going to have the services. Therefore, he doesn't allow his daughter to get married. That's what it means, al techalel. Don't profane your daughter by not letting her get married, according to Rabbi Akiva. Amar Rav Kahana, Mishul Rabbi Akiva. There's no poor person in Israel except for the scheming evildoer. Or a person who has a mature daughter and doesn't let her get married. 1 second. The person who doesn't allow his mature daughter to get married, is he not a scheming evildoer? This is what it means. Who is the poor man who is a scheming evildoer? Who is this poor man who's a scheming evildoer? He's poor. He doesn't have the ability to pay for domestic help. So he becomes scheming in the sense that he doesn't allow his mature daughter to get married. You have to be careful. People who give you advice is perhaps giving you advice only for their benefit. right? The father says to his daughter, "Don't marry this guy; he's not good. Don't marry that guy; he's not good." Right? Meanwhile, all the reason he just wants her home so she can continue to do the house chores, and therefore be careful and worry of the advice that people give you. The Gemara says this about your own father, then how much more so from your friends and other people? You have to look what is their what's it called gain? What are they trying to gain by the advice that they're giving you? Amr Yehuda Amarav, Hamisid be told the zaken, one who marries his young daughter off to an older man. So the way the Marfashim explain this is, and Solomon asked this, is that if they're not in the same age range, meaning that they're very different from each other, she's not going to be able to relate to him, and he's not going to be able to relate to her, and therefore, first of all, his desire also might be a little less, and she requires more intimacy. He's not able to provide that. He's not able to provide physical intimacy. He's not going to provide mental intimacy because they're just on different wavelengths. And therefore, what's going to happen is this girl is going to be looking for someone more her age, more her style, and she's going to end up flirting with other people and perhaps coming to sin with them. And therefore, you're going to profane your daughter if you marry her off someone who is older. The halachic deciders, the poskim. Okay, Solomon says no more than 10 years. Okay, if that it can make sense. 10 years might be the limit of the same wavelength. But the poskim say that if she really wants to marry this guy, then it's still permissible, right? Because she's really fond of him. But overall, you try to marry them in the same age range, somewhat similar, so therefore they can be they can be related to each other, in mind relative to each other. I remember when I was dating, I don't know if it's a good muscle, was less than 10 years, but when I was dating, I was already like 24, 25, and I was dating a girl who was like, she just finished high school and she was 17. And I remember going out on a date, and it was just like two different worlds. It was like I was already in a certain age level, and she was talking about things that weren't really of any interest or nothing importance and stuff like that. And I felt that was like, okay, where are we? We're on the same date, but she's in one world and I'm in another. And that can happen. That's a big problem. Okay, another one. Or if he gets a older woman for his young son, he wants to marry off his son young, but he gets a mature woman for her. She's not going to find any comfort with this young boy. It's not what she's looking for. Or if someone finds something that belongs to a guy and returns it to a guy. And all of these are no good. The Pasuk says, for all these, Hashem will not be able to forgive him. Returning an article to a guy. Goyim think losers, losers weepers, finders keepers, right? That's the way it works. That you lose something, they find it, they keep it. And therefore, if you return something to a guy, they think, oh, look, he just returned what's Jewish property because he found it. And that means I'm able to take away Jewish property. I'm going to go and take more Jewish property away. He's going to start doing more problems for the Jewish people. However, Halacha says that if it's going to be either a Kiddush Hashem or a Chil Hashem, you're not going to return it, or if you do return it, it'll be a Kiddush Hashem, then you can go ahead and return it to a guy. But Halach L'maisa, really, the Ikar Adin, you should not return something to a guy unless again it's Chil Hashem or a Kiddush Hashem. Meitvei, they asked the question from this Braita. The Braita says you love your wife like yourself. Okay, very important. Rambam brings this down in Halacha as well. You love your wife like yourself. You cannot love someone more than yourself. The most you can love someone is like yourself, right? So therefore, you love someone like yourself. But you have to honor her more than yourself. Meaning, if you spend $100 on clothing, you spend 200, whatever. You give her more money for clothing and other stuff to honor her. You give her more honor. And if you put your children on the right path, and you marry off the children while they're youngish, Pasuk says, it's a good thing you won't come to sin. So you see, it says marry your son young. And yeah, the other Braita, it said, don't marry your son young. It's a problem. The Gemara says, it makes a difference when they're married. Meaning, if they're closer in age, it's not a problem. If they're further in age, it's going to be a problem. Right? If she's 15 and he's 12, okay, so I'll wait a little bit and he'll become more mature and they'll be within the same age range, right? But if he's 15 and she's 25, and she's 30, that's going to be a problem. And we'll end off with this. Nurabanan, one who loves his neighbors, and someone who draws his relatives close. Someone who marries his sister's daughter, because a person is very fond of his sister and is even more fond of his sister's daughter. And such a marriage will bring a lot of love and a lot of niceness. If you give money to the poor person in his time of need, this the pasuk says, "As tikra v'Hashem yaneh." Then you call out and Hashem will answer. It's a very good thing. What about today? Marrying someone's sister's daughter, although it is permissible, over the generations, it seemed to have stopped because people have noticed genetic defects from marrying close family. And therefore, since we know that to be the case today, we don't really practice marrying such close relatives, such as a niece. Okay? And this is where we'll end for today. If there are any questions, we'll take it at this time. All right. So, Be'ezat Hashem, tonight we'll have Shir on Halacha on Kiddush, Shabbos Kiddush, Yom Tov Kiddush Part 3, and that will be at 8:30 tonight. Shavua Tov.